Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I was just listening to Kenny for real right now, and he gave me something to talk about. I do believe that the game that we saw yesterday, Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson, that game may have potentially created some opportunities for trades that may not have been available before that game. Listening to Kenny, he was essentially saying teams like the Rockets and some of these other teams that may not have intended to tank may actually turn around and say, you know what, it might make more sense for us to do so. And in the event that takes place, some of the players on those teams may actually not want to be a part of a tanking effort. They might be closer to taking steps toward wanting to win. And if that's the case, they may actually desire to get out of those situations upon that becoming a thing. Now, this is wild speculation. I'm not saying that this is imminent. I haven't heard of any situations or nothing like that. But when you have a player like Victor Wembanyama go for 7 threes and 5 blocks, and then you got Scoot Henderson doing what he did yesterday, you start to rearrange your goals if you're a team who wasn't scouting those players beforehand. Now, why any team would not be scouting those players, I do not know. But even if you were scouting them, they displayed something a lot better than what it is that you were anticipating. We wanted to see Victor Wembanyama. We're pretty sure he would give us some, really good, games to watch or good game to watch. But he came out there and put up something legendary. Like he stepped out there and was just playing out of his mind. And down the stretch of the game in the clutch, even though he lost, it was very obvious that this is a super duper star. So now it's like, for those who were wondering how he would perform and whether or not they should start turning their attention toward tanking, they are now definitely going to do that after seeing him perform in that way. So I'm now looking at the situation with my 2 picks as a Laker fan, and I'm saying, okay, we need to hold on to these 2 picks, not necessarily because we want Victor, because obviously our picks aren't for this upcoming season, but we need to make sure that we're ready for any of these opportunities that may pop up in the event some scenario like this happens, because that's exactly the type of currency that teams are going to want in the event one of these players decide to say, you know what, nah, get me out of this situation, I want to win. They're going to want picks because that's what the currency is. That's what the high price thing is. That's why teams are already trying to jump on us, trying to get us to throw away our picks over the last several weeks, because they knew that after this game last night, picks were going to be on them, have a different price tag on them. So that's why I think there was so much pressure on the Lakers to make the Pacer move. You saw the big push for the Lakers to, this report about the Lakers. Oh, they were considering doing the deal with the Pacers, but not really. And no, we're not interested in Kyrie Irving. I think a lot of that had to do with what it is I'm describing right now. And picks, the value of picks have just changed a little bit. So now my speculation takes me to a situation where I wonder, like, who would be willing to tank that may not have been thinking about tanking before. And I tell you, it really comes down to teams like Orlando, Houston, Sacramento, some of these other, some of these teams that may not have been necessarily tanking for Victor. Now they can start looking and seeing how much they love their own young players versus the opportunity to get Victor Wembanyama. That's what it really comes down to. If you're a team like Sacramento and you got all these great heavy contracts, in terms of like Barnes and Sabonis and Fox, maybe after last night, you're now ready to move on from them contracts. Leave yourself nothing but Keegan Murray and Davion Mitchell and those young guys. And then tank for Victor with your own pick. You know what I mean? And then from there, keep your pocket the change. Now, that might not be the smartest thing, since a team like Sacramento has a hard time getting free agents. They got those contracts. So I wouldn't necessarily want to do that. But for a chance at that type of player, it actually seems like a reasonable thing for a team like Sacramento, who obviously has a good team, but they ain't going to win no championship with this core. It's obvious that's not happening. So it's like, for those teams that are really solid, upside, but the ceiling ain't championship, some of them might just say, you know what, let's redirect our entire focus. Let's get rid of all this nonsense that we have that ain't good enough. Let's get bad, and let's just tank for Victor. So I think a lot of that could be possible, man. I think a lot of that could be possible. But I would tell teams, and I'm sure they know this, don't forget what the NBA did in regards to tanking. They made it so that the bottom 3 teams have the same amount of chance of getting it. So it could very well end up a team that did not tank and all that end up with him. You know, a team that probably just misses the play-in tournament that ends up with Victor. And so that's what that's what I would guard against if I were in the NBA as a franchise. Just, yeah, you can tank, but don't over extract is what I was saying. Don't over extract. Don't throw away too much good for a possibility at great. Have a good firm positioning on getting great if you're going to give up so much. You know, make it relative to what you're willing to risk in the event that you don't get back Victor, or Scoot. You know what I mean? So that's why I would consider, like, if I'm Oklahoma, we're tanking. If I'm San Antonio, we're tanking. Indy, as soon as I can move those players that are on contract, that's already in place. So you know those 3 teams, they trying to get them. But who else is going to pop up? And who else? You know, I would not expect some of the teams that just spent money to get players, like the Knicks who just spent money. I don't expect them to try to push Jalen Brunson into a tanking situation. But then again, do the Knicks really have anything better going on than Victor Wembanyama? And see, that's the question that all of these teams, and I think all of the teams in the NBA really have to ask themselves. And of course, the answer is going to be quick for some of them. Yes, we good. We don't need to do that. But I don't think the answer is quick for all of the teams in this league that aren't considering tanking. And that's what Kenny for real put in my mind. Like, you know what? You know, like, let's say if I'm Orlando, I'm definitely keeping Paolo. But we can tank. Like, you know what I mean? There's nothing keeping us from tanking. If I'm Orlando, what would keep us from being a 20-win team? You know, these young players, like, you know what I mean? Let's see, who comes to mind? Chimo KK, you can keep him on tab. Hampton, keep him on tab. These players go along. Bol, of whom I said I thought was with the Celtics. He's with Orlando. You keep him on tab. These guys can all be a part of tanking efforts. But then you start looking at Cole Anthony, who's already in a logjam. Does he really want to be a part of a tanking effort that could potentially bring another guard in? Like, no. Like, I'm sure he would love to be in Orlando under the circumstances he's in. But if they decide to tank for Victor so that they can pair up Banchero and Victor, it's a lost season for him, as to which, if he were in a different winning type situation, it might be an all-star season for him with the type of talent that he showed he was capable of with the jump he made last year. So, not saying that he's somebody that would be on the block for any reason, but if they shifted toward tanking, maybe you look at him and say, hey, would you like to be a part of something that would get you a little closer to winning? You know, maybe we can swing a trade to get you somewhere else, and then maybe you can kind of have a bigger role and start to show what it is you can really do, because that's kind of where he's at. You know, he don't really need to do too much developing from here. He just needs the minutes to just show that he's a leading guard, in my opinion. And a guy like Jalen Suggs, hot on his tail, and then like Markelle Fultz, who's coming back from injury, and like I said, RJ Hampton as well. And then if they tank and get number 2, you got Scoot. It's like, okay, well, that's when you start looking around and saying, do we need to keep Cole? You know, or obviously Jalen Suggs you probably hold on to because you drafted him last year with your 5th pick in the draft. So his stock is just considered higher based on where you drafted him in just last year. So you almost still consider him as a lottery pick, somewhat damaged coming off injury, but he's healthy right now. We saw him play in the last game. So he's somebody I'm targeting as well. Like, you know, depending on how Orlando feels about tanking, I'm trying to snatch up some of them players off of their team. So I look at Houston. I don't think Houston should do that. I think they're the one team with their young core that should continue to try to win and don't worry about Victor, because I think they already have their starting front court solidified. Jalen Smith and Alperen Sengun are going to be fantastic together for many years. But you have to ask yourself and be honest. Are either one of those guys better than Victor? You don't think so. You do not think so. And are you better with Alperen Sengun or Jalen Smith, or are you better with, Victor and Jalen Smith or something like that? And the answer is going to definitely be Victor. And so that's when you start looking around and saying, okay, We have already a bunch of lottery picks. Who all are we gonna pay? If we're gonna go to tank, sure we can keep most of them, but are all of them want to be a part of this tanking situation? What's up with Eric Gordon? You can start seeing him get moved. What's up with maybe some of those other guys, Osman Guzman? You already have young bigs on the floor. Do you have enough minutes for all of them? So if they were to shift to decide to tank, I don't think they would have as much resistance because they do have a bunch of underdeveloped players. But then you would see a situation where some of those players would see themselves getting replaced. And so, that's when it starts getting funny. Maybe you look at a team like, I don't know, I'm not thinking about Boston or something like that. You would never think they would turn their attention to doing something like that. But even them, this is what it really comes down to. Even them. Do they have anything better going on than Victor? No. Love Jason Tatum, but no, he's not a better prospect than Victor Wembanyama. He's really not. And so that's what it really comes down to. All of these teams, every last one of them, are going to legitimately assess their situation, and they're going to wonder if it makes sense, even with all they have, try to go after that kid. Just throw the season away, get rid of contracts that you really don't love, because you know if you get him, you're building a champion around that dude. He's not retiring without a championship. Not if he has a healthy career. He's not retiring without a championship. So that's something I'm declaring on this camera right now. Wembanyama's going to be an NBA champion. So it's just about who can get him and keep him, basically. And so when you start thinking along those lines and you really believe that, then I don't think there's a team in this league that should be really interested in just simply ignoring the opportunity of getting him. So now there's obviously certain teams like ourselves, the Lakers. We don't have our pick. We ain't getting our pick. So it's no chance. And nobody's sending us the pick that would get him. So we are not a part of this, which is it's okay because we've already done what we need to do to build a champion, and our timeline is right now. But this is what happens when you make your timeline right now. When a prospect like this comes along, you have no chance to get them. Simple and plain. So that's just part of it, man. And trust you me, yes, great prospects come around. But this type of prospects, nah. This guy don't come around. This is the one time you get Victor. This is one of those type of prospects. So, yeah, with that being understood, I think all of the teams with an opportunity to hold that draft pick will assess whether or not it's in their best interest to not be very good this season. I really believe that. And teams like the Brooklyn Nets, this is why I've been screaming at them all summer. I think people are going to start screaming at them about that Royce O'Neal trade now. But I've already been on that. I've been telling y'all Victor was coming, and I've been telling y'all that could literally be the pick that drafts him. The one that they traded to Utah for Royce O'Neal could very well be the pick that drafts Victor Wembanyama if things go wrong in Brooklyn. If Ben Simmons has a bad situation with his back, if KD, for some reason, has a bad year with his ankle or whatever type of injury, if Kyrie chooses something other than basketball or gets traded midway through the season and they only bringing back picks in Westbrook, they could be the team that is bad enough to get the pick, especially with everything being as it is with the changes made to the lottery, as I told you. If the Utah Jazz get Victor Wembanyama with the Brooklyn Nets pick, I will not be surprised. Because I don't honestly think the Brooklyn Nets foundation for being a very good team is strong at all. At all. And they are the number one team I think could fall off a cliff with a couple of injuries. Because they don't have the bench. They don't have the upside in the players. If them stars ain't it, they gone. Especially in the Eastern Conference, as strong as it is, with all that size and length, they don't have it. So, I'm telling you, I know people laughing like they're not getting him, but I'm telling you, they should have never traded that pick. That's all I'm saying. They should have never done that. And so that's pretty much it. You look at the Minnesota Timberwolves and you laugh. Because they traded away probably 2 or 3 different picks from next year's draft to get Rudy Gobert, who's not better than Victor Wembanyama right now. He's not. He is absolutely not better than Victor Wembanyama today. So they're the worst of them all, in my opinion. I think that was the worst trade I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's because I knew Victor was coming. Not to mention that the price tag on Rudy Gobert was laughable. But it is what it is, man. I'm going to go put some oil on this bite and just go, listen to this and try to see if I can come up with some more content as well. Because at the end of the day, I do think yesterday opened up a lot in terms of possibilities of trades and things like that. You look at the San Antonio Spurs, some of the pieces that they got, definitely seeing those pieces like, Pearl in them, they getting moved. And I'm just curious to see who else, man. Who else will want to get involved after last night? Who else looks at their core and says, ain't none of this better than Victor? My name is BDR44. I thank you all for watching. I'm out.